them out for a walk. They're gonna burst like bubbles in the fun of a Sunday in New York. You can spend time without spending a dime, watching people watch people pass. Later you pause, and in one of the stores, there's that face next to yours in the glass.
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, comedy on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today, and a big shout out to Andy Mouzon, who we had a delightful two-set conversation, and he's been all around this world, but he's been ensconced in the New York music scene, both on the bandstand and in the studio. And when he mentioned that he has been in contact with my next guest, I really freaked out because I wasn't even sure if my guest was still on the planet. He is somebody who added so much color and texture as an accompanist to so many albums like the one we just heard, Mark Murphy, Swinging the Band, and I just have a gut feeling that he kind of was raised in that King Records, Cincinnati, sort of southern area of funk, and he brought that organ and keyboard style into the studios and really made albums, rock albums and pop albums, swing in a really, really beautiful way. And just his presence in the studio made everybody be themselves, and as a result, you have great music. Pat Rebillot, what an honor. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Oh, thank you. It's very nice to hear from you.
Am I correct that did you hear the sounds of King Records? I know you were born in Ohio. I just wasn't sure.
I was born in Ohio, but that was a little before my time. I went to the conservatory in Cincinnati. It's interesting you mentioned that. But I wasn't aware of all these different styles. I came from a very small town in northeastern Ohio, and I didn't even know what jazz was till I went to the conservatory, and they dragged me off kicking and screaming to my first sort of jazz gig because they didn't have a piano player, and they said, well, you've had theory now, so all you have to do is just play the chords. So I did that, and I loved it so much, I said, I think I found a new bag, and that's when I started to get into it.
Can you talk about, I couldn't ask a better person, like at that time, a great piano player, by the way. I don't know if you crossed paths with him. I think he also went to that conservatory. It was Mike Longo.
Yes.
Did Mike, were you there at the same time, or was he before?
No, I think I was before him.
I would love you to talk about conceptually the way, what is your concept of jazz at that time? I mean, me and you could walk down the street of New York today and ask 20 people what they think their concept of jazz is. We get 20 different answers.
Yeah, it's pretty amorphous.
But you know why? Because when you were there, jazz was still considered a popular American music. And I just wanted you to talk about, if it was more about, just, you could take it away. What is your concept of jazz, and what was it at that time that, because really, I mean, now the only exposure cats really get to it is in the academy because there's just no touring circuit,
Right. Yeah, I like the music because I like the harmonic twists and turns you could do with it and the visceral rhythm feel of it. And I found that applied to everything I played, even if it wasn't jazz. It had the same impetus behind it, harmonically and rhythmically. And when I got into studio work, a lot of it was R&B, and I still had room for improvisation. I would make up the parts, and I think that's how the jazz influence paid off. Once I was on a Brian McKnight session, and it was a giant orchestra, and they liked what I was doing so much they sent everybody else home. I felt really bad. Because the arranger was a friend of mine. And I said, oh, no. But I think that
when you say visceral rhythm, we're not, see, that's the point, is that there were no drum machines. It was every freaking drummer. In fact, I think, I don't know, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I mean, Jimmy Madison, I think was he from there? Why am I blanking out about it?
I played with him a lot in the city.
In New York, but I mean,
not in Cincinnati.
But was he from there? Am I just tripping out about that, or
I don't know. I think I would have heard if he.
Yeah, you probably
had
would.
Been.
No, but I mean, like that's the point. Is that every drummer. And I'm not saying this necessarily was happening in the four walls of the academy, but I mean you talk about visceral rhythm that was coming from the heartbeat of every drummer. It didn't matter if it was Joe Morello or Elvin Jones or Pete LaRocca or freaking, I don't even know. I mean, it didn't. You could tell if you had big ears, you could tell right away who the drummer was on every Blue Note album. Bill Cosby told me that before the world caved in on him. He was a jazz fanatic.
Yeah, he sat in with, I was working with David Fathead Newman in the Village, and he sat in with us on Pretending to Smoke a Cigar.
Dude, you're making my, because I interviewed Tony Orlando, and him and Tony would sit at the Village Gate and watch, it was probably Ray Barretto, maybe Armando Peraza just go nuts on the congas for 5 hours. He was... what you can say what you want to say about he might be a scumbag, but I mean, the man did so much for the musicians. I find it, of course, he was just sitting there smoking a cigarette and just with Fathead, of course. But I mean, what year? Well, I guess here's the other point: is that can you just talk about the first experiences, even before you went to New York, about, were you in an organ trio? Were you kicking pedals at all? I mean, can you
I'll tell you how I got started on the organ. I started piano lessons at 9, and then I was a choir boy from the get-go, from first grade. And part of the things that I did while I was singing was they had an old tracker organ that would run out of breath, and I would run over to the side and pump it like a water pump to get the air back in.
Absolutely. Was it called a tracker?
Yeah. So
wow,
that was how I got introduced to the organ. And then when I was 12, they hired me to be the organist. I was on.
Okay.
Let's try this one.
No,
how's that?
You sound great. You sounded great before.
Oh, it was clicking. I guess Kathy caught that. So thank you, Kathy.
No, maybe there was another phone call coming in. Anyway, this is important. So you learned.
So anyway,
you became the organist in the church.
Yeah, and it was a nice organ in spite of running out of breath every once in a while. It was a French settlement called Louisville, spelled like Louisville. Only they pronounced the S, Louisville. It's a suburb of Canton, about 8 miles east of Canton.
Wow.
And so that's how I got started with my accompanying chops. And I think that was pretty important in my development. I didn't know that you're supposed to practice. From when I started piano lessons, I would go for my weekly star without practicing, and they teased me about my first piano teacher having a nervous breakdown when she discovered I didn't practice.
Yeah, I mean, like, you guys, it was such a beautiful time because, like, Muzan didn't even finish Juilliard. I don't know, he didn't even graduate high school because he had a goatee. He didn't finish Juilliard. To me, this is really what I wanted you to step back and just talk to the audience about, is just because part of it was just, you were a conduit and you had huge ears and the music was coming through you and, frankly, practice it wasn't even really relevant. But the point is, was a musician, like at that time when you were coming up, was a musician seen as a viable profession? I ask because in today's world, at 43 and younger, I just see, it's so hard now. There's no intellectual property rights. There's, you can have 15 million downloads and make 20 cents on a song. Yeah. And then the only way you can do it is really road dogging it. And even then you don't get a lot of money. So it's like, you can play for the door. You can pay to play. That was not the case at all. Even in, and you could play in a pizza parlor with bongo drums and like a trio and make $150 a week, and the cost of living was fine. You could pay your rent. And I just wonder, looking back on it, was a musician seen as a viable profession when you were coming up, and that was something that you would aspire to do?
We were seen as an unusual, offbeat profession. And
that is the great, but it was still professional.
If we could make a living at it, more power to us.
I dig.
When I started out in the city in 1960, I lived as frugally as possible. I didn't know when I went to the city, it was like cold. I didn't know if I was going to have to operate an elevator or work in a department store or what. But it turns out I was more qualified than I knew. So I dropped the stone in the pond, and it kept rippling out to all these different people that I met and played with then.
Can you talk about, well, first of all, why did you decide to go to New York? I mean, maybe it's obvious, but there's other places that were...
Yeah, actually, when I had got drafted in the Army at the end of the 50s, and I worked my way up to all-Army entertaining troupe. It's not the USO, but resembled that. Put on a show, and it had a nice band. And
were there any notable there's any name guys in that band?
I don't think you would know any of the names, but so that's where I got to arranging and into jazz much more, because we went around the world playing for all the military bases of every denomination. And while we were doing that, I thought, well, this is my chance to see where I want to go. I want to go back to Cincinnati. I hated playing piano bars. So that's when I decided New York City had to be it. So
wait, hold on for a second. You're telling me that Brubeck had come through, had done the world tour. Were you one of the first bands to do those bass tours?
That I don't know.
I'm just saying that, like, jazz musicians, like, they help desegregate the Army. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, to me, that was like, go ahead.
Our band was thoroughly mixed. For instance, when we were in Paris, we got invited to the Blue Note, and Ben Benjamin was the very gracious host, and Bud Powell was playing there, and he put me on the stage right behind him, so I could
my dear God.
be right there. And then he hired our band the next night, so that was really sweet.
Oh my! No, I wanted to ask you about that, because it's a little bit. For me, the lineage doesn't quite stretch back, but I did a great interview with a guy we just lost, Barry Harris, and Barry said that he said you could ask Chick Corea, you could ask Keith Jarrett, the guys that from sort of little more contemporary to me. All of them would say Bud Powell was their favorite, was the best piano player. Was he just?
Oh yeah.
And explain why. I mean, was there an intrinsic blues element to it? What made him?
Very, very much. Yeah. But also his tone and his time. He sort of laid back on the time of just a hair.
Yep.
And the notes would come out fuller for some reason, the way he played. and more legato. And you just heard more tone. And his ideas were just incredible. He was so fertile, his imagination. It was, he set an extremely high bar.
And Red Garland is in the conversation. Like, well, who? I just talked to me a little bit about the Cats. That, when I mean, for them to put you behind Bud Powell is just like that was a hero of yours. Who were your other heroes?
Let's see. I had a lot of them. Bill Evans,
Sure.
I liked a lot. And let's see. I liked the old guys. I loved Fats Waller.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with Roland Kirk once. He said, "Nobody swung like Fats Waller."
That is the greatest line I've ever heard in my life, dude.
And I have come to agree with that. Anytime I hear him, I perk up.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
such happy, such swinging music. And I like the old guys. I like Teddy Wilson. I like James P. Johnson. And a lot of the newer guys I like, but I really can't pick anyone out.
Yeah, it's just like funny to hear about the Cats who were sitting around with their Victrola record players freaking out about Bud Powell. I mean, he was. This is the other thing that I wanted you to talk about, that Barry talked about, is the ability, and maybe you had this experience, not that you were, swinging hard in the church, but you did play. How did you learn to swing by yourself? A lot of people today think it's be reliant on the rhythm section. They need to swing the band. That was not the case when Sun Ra was coming up before the orchestra. He would just point to Cats like Julian Priester, and he'd have to start blowing the bone, and I mean, he'd have to keep his own. Everyone had their own inner time feel. As a result, everybody could swing. And I just wanted you to talk about how you developed the self-assuredness to swing, by yourself, so to speak.
Well, I think it was when I got introduced to jazz. I played with musicians who had it together as far as keeping a good beat, and I learned by example how important it was, and then I realized how good it felt to be able to keep the beat, and that paid off in the studio work too, because there were a lot of times where I would play somebody had written a demo, like for 60 seconds for a jingle, and I'd run it through, and they would say, "Oh, it just needs to be 2 seconds shorter. Can you do that?" And I had the ability to make it 58 instead of 60.
Oh, my Rebillot, dude, you're blowing my mind. This is what it's about, man. This is like before computers. I mean, so you.
Yep.
So explain that method. I mean, how was that just a gift from the creator, or was
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think I can take too much credit for that. It's just something that I was able to develop or had all along, like my sight reading. I once did a session with a giant orchestra, and Zita Carno was there. She had a reputation as the best sight reader in existence, and we had similar parts. She didn't do it as well as I did. I was shocked because
wow. Yeah, no, I mean, that's something that is probably just God-given, man. I don't even know that. That's ridiculous. So let's, well, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I don't expect you to know who this is, but pay attention to the content, and we'll come back and break it down.
This is a very, very important point. I'm actually glad that you want me to talk about this, because what we had, you see, my parents were very, very critical of me. And so, and my peers were also critical, to the point where if we were going to play something, you had to represent what it is that you were going to play authentically. You couldn't half-ass anything. You didn't get a pass. You couldn't skate. So what happens if you learn this early on, then it prepares you for when you're in the actual marketplace and you're performing with seasoned performers. So when they say something to you to that effect, you don't get shaken by it, because your foundation is a good, strong foundation, because it started at home. It started in your community. If you couldn't play, everybody would let you know. And so those that got through, that got the opportunities to play, when the band leader said, hey, man, you got to step up, you didn't get all upset about that, because, if you were at that point and the band leader said you had to step up, something was wrong, because you always had to step up, because everybody told you that from the beginning. So you have to get yourself together and in order. Mm-hmm. And also, the fact is that it was different. All the people that I revered, listened to, and who were my heroes were my contemporaries. It wasn't that I listened to somebody on a record and he was dead, and now I had to try to play, or to play like him. Art Blakey, Philly Joe, Elvin, Max, Tony, Roy Haynes, they were all still playing. I had to play at the same time. All those guys, they had all the gigs, and if somebody needed a drummer and they wanted a new drummer, then you had to be on point to get the gig. And so my parents taught me that you had to be representative of what it is that you're going to do. You had to be on point. If you were not on point, then you need to get on point.
Mr. Rebillot, that was an interview I did with the great drummer Lenny White.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And, not so much about his parents, but because he went on and later talked about at 13, his dad would, on school nights, take him down and he'd be on the bandstand playing with, like, Jackie McLean, and Jackie was, like, yelling at him, like, no backbeat, and can you, clearly you're known as a sublime, swinging studio cat, but can you talk about going up to the Club Baron in Harlem and really entering the subculture of black American music?
Well, I first should backtrack a little. I didn't mention my two heroes, who are Thelonious Monk and Duke Ellington.
Oh, dear.
Those are at the top of my list. In fact, when I was touring the world with that Army group, I would buy all the funny hats to emulate Monk.
Dude, do you have picture? I need a picture of that. I need a picture of you in one of those hats, dude.
I wish I had a picture.
Oh, that's beautiful,
man. So anyway, where were we?
Well, just
Sorry,
it's fine. No. The point is that, like, Dick Hyman was up there. I mean, everybody who wound up in the studios. I mean, I just know that you were ensconced in the subculture of live music up in Harlem,
yes.
And I just wanted you to talk about, like kind of what he was talking about, like going up there and sitting in, and just stepping up, and before you really became, a first call radio registry guy.
Well, the 60s were my bebop era. I worked at the Village Gate and
oh dear,
the Village Vanguard and the Half Note. The Half Note especially I really enjoyed. They had this big oval bar that you stepped up to where the bandstand was, and they would serve drinks around you.
I love this. That's so. I do. Wait, hold on. But I mean, let's not. You didn't just walk in and they're like, "Oh, that's Pat Rebillot." I mean, how did you get? What was your? I know you. Was Herbie your first? Herbie Mann was it? Who got you into the Gate, or how? Like, talk about that first gig.
Oh boy. No, Herbie came later.
Yeah.
Let's see. It was just that thing I mentioned about the pebble in the pond. Your circle of acquaintances widens, and eventually different people hear about you. And
what was Frank? Was like Frank Foster or someone like that? I mean, I got to know about the pebble.
I played with Frank. Yeah. I fell in with a lot of the ex-Baseites because I worked with O.C. Smith at the Concord.
Oh dear!
With Lenny Ambrose band.
Okay, so that's when did that go down?
Sometime in the '60s.
Oh my!
I'm terrible with exact
It's all right.
dates.
I'm just trying to get the chronology of.
Yeah.
So you got, and so in OC's band there was a lot of.
It wasn't his band; it was Lenny Ambrose's band, and OC sang with us.
Dig.
OC and I really hit it off, and he introduced me to Benny Powell. I worked with him for a while, and Frank Foster. I worked with him for a while. So that was one widening circle I really enjoyed.
Can you talk about playing with someone like Frank Foster? I mean, the thesaurus of ideas that were coming out of these guys. These guys were steeped in the language of bebop, but they didn't memorize their solos. Everything was off the cuff, man. That's what I hear that in your studio stuff, even though it sounds like it's written out, but it's really off the cuff. I mean, how can you just was that the first time that, because that to me is jazz. It's having the built-in vernacular, but then riffing off the cuff. I mean, can you just talk about?
Well, I'd like to mention Birdland because I worked there early in my career.
Are you kidding?
60s.
See, dude, you're blowing my mind right now. So the original Birdland. Who'd you work?
Second and Broadway. I worked there with Benny Powell, and I'll never forget one gig. We were playing opposite Jerry Mulligan's big band, and one string on the piano was horribly out of tune. It was just awful. So I would stick a napkin in it to dampen it, and that fixed it. But every time Mulligan would come and play the piano, he would tear it out. So we kept playing this game. Stick a napkin in, pull the napkin out. But they really liked me at that Birdland, the manager and the bartender, and I liked being there so much. I might have cried when it closed. It was really devastating to me. Because I was really getting my feet wet.
Like you would, I mean, were you part of the house rhythm section, or you just...
At the half note I was. Along with Ross Tompkins, we switched back and forth.
Oh, my God, what a genius that guy was.
And that was... I got to work with so many wonderful people there.
What, were you working with Jake Hanna or something?
Al Conan, Zoot Sims, and Anita O'Day, and Roy Eldridge, and Ruby Braff, and I could have a funny comment from there when I was playing with Jimmy Rushing, who was my all-time favorite to work with. He was wonderful. James Moody and Roy Haynes were in the band.
Oh, my God.
And Moody complained to me. He said, Roy Haynes is too busy. And he was. And then a little bit later, Roy Haynes complained to me, Moody's too busy. They were both right.
Oh, my, they were just too much language for them, huh?
They both like to be busy.
I mean, can you just talk about, like, being, I mean, clearly, you know, you had Woody Herman, Doc Severinsen, Al Cohn, Zoot Sims, Stan Getz. I mean, if you could play the music, you were respected, but it was truly a black subculture at that time. And I just, and maybe it was, it was supported by,
gigs.
I mean, I just want you to talk about how cool it was to be a white cat in this subculture.
Well, I remember being the only white cat in the house when I would play with a black band in Queens or something.
Oh, boy.
But I felt very comfortable. It wasn't until they started to think about black power that it got a little uncomfortable, because some of the brothers would say to the band leaders, hey, why don't you hire a brother? So that became a little uncomfortable at that point.
Absolutely. Steve Kuhn said the same thing. It was kind of after, you know, ML King got assassinated, and there was it But before that, can you talk about that beautiful feeling of just that inclusiveness and that music transcending all the petty crap about skin color?
Yeah, it was nice, really nice that it was beyond skin color, because you're communicating at such a high level with the music. Jimmy Rushing was my all-time favorite, because by the time he would get to the shout chorus, you would feel like you were levitating.
Oh, my
he was
God.
so strong.
Oh.
And he would tell Rudy Powell, the clarinetist, listen to Pat. He became my dad, my jazz daddy. He was so wonderful. But unfortunately, he was near the end, and I didn't get to work with him as much as I would have liked.
My God. Talking to Pat.
But
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a thrill.
So when you were eating, cans of soup and just being very frugal early on, like, did you actually go on any kind of, not the Army stuff, but did you wind up going on tour with any of the cats, early on? Did you go on any tours?
Yeah, I did, a lot. I toured with Gary Burton and Paul Winter.
What?
And I went to Brazil twice with Paul Winter. And after I got back, Sergio Mendes told me that I was a big influence on the younger generation of players there.
Rebillot, you see what I'm saying, dude? This is so I knew it, dude. I knew it.
They hadn't heard the kind of harmonies I was laying on the bossa nova. And so they liked it. So it was great fun.
Wait, but I just want to be clear, though. What year did you move to New York?
1960, towards the end of the year.
So, but you weren't part of the group that Winter played, because there was I've interviewed the great drummer Harold Jones, and he was in this collegiate band with Winter that wound up playing for Kennedy. It got recorded in 62. And
I wasn't aware of that.
So
it must have been after that.
How did you connect with Winter?
Boy, I wish I could remember.
It's okay if you can't. It's no.
I was. It might have had something to do with. I was playing with Jeremy Steig, the flute player.
Are you kidding me, dude? Dude, this is making my day. You're telling me that you were there with Donald McDonald, Sam Brown.
Yeah.
I need you to tell me all about Sam Brown, by the way. I love that man. I'm rest in peace, man.
Sam was one of my best friends.
I knew it, dude.
We were very
his
close.
Spirit is in my soul on this journey. Please tell me about Sam Brown, dude. Please tell me about it.
We took a car trip to Ohio together from New York to just visit family. And we toured with Herbie Mann, and he wrote some great songs. And
you guys played in the studio like hand in glove, though. Did he?
Yeah, there was a lot of that, too. But Sam was very special. I think what happened, he and another friend of mine, Midge Pike, the bass player, you ever hear that name?
I don't know that guy.
Yeah, he was very, very fine bass player. He was also on Paul Winter, the one tour in Brazil, and the other one was Cecil McBee.
My dear friend, I love that cat, man.
So I think what happened was maybe some LSD with Midge and Sam, and I don't think he was ever the same after that. I think it screwed up his head.
Hold on for a second. Just slow down for a second. In Brazil, you guys got dosed, or when did that go down?
In Brazil, got dosed?
No, I mean, I'm saying when did he ingest? Did he was unknowingly, someone gave him some acid, he didn't know it, or how did that?
No, I think he and Midge definitely consciously wanted to try it.
They ingested it. They took some acid, and he never really.
To me, he changed after that.
That's amazing. I mean, you do hear about. I mean, but did it?
It's like he was existing in a different plane after that.
Wow, dude, Rebillot, dude, was he able to actually still be a studio shark, or he couldn't even perform, or what?
No, he could still play, but his head was definitely in a different place, which is very sad to me.
Yeah, made it harder to just relate on a friend level.
Well, not so much. We never lost our affection for each other, but the rest of his life got kind of messed up. Really sad.
So you went with Winter on this tour in Brazil, and
also you mentioned the black music. We played Black Colleges, which was my favorite venue of all time. They were the best audiences ever with Paul Winter.
You played historically black.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's also interesting to me because, which ones? Because so many of them, I remember at Howard University, Benny Golson wrote Killer Joe, and they gave him an F in harmony, and Eddie Henderson was almost shot by a security guard for practicing jazz. I mean, Roberto, those cats. I mean, Andrew White and these other major people, they weren't going to Howard to study jazz.
Right.
So what colleges were they?
These were in the South, and I'm sorry, I don't remember their proper names, but there were several that we had the privilege and the fun of playing.
And you're saying McBee was in the band with you, and who else was in?
Yes.
Who was in? And was you and who else?
It was Susan McBee and Freddie Waits. You know him?
Oh my God! Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
M-Boom, dude, ridiculous drummer, man.
Yeah. And let's see who else.
Paul was the only horn reed man, or?
I can't remember. There was it may have been an alto player who I don't remember much about.
Yeah.
And Jeremy. So Jeremy was funny. He was so eccentric. You had to aim him towards the stage because he'd be warming up. And he'd just keep playing, and then you'd have to usher him off, and he'd still be playing.
Oh, my God. Well, no, because I grew up on his dad's books,
Yeah.
But Jeremy's playing. In fact, there's a couple albums with Sam that he did. I don't think you're on them, but
no.
Like Don Elias is on them. The guy was nasty. I mean, there was a lot. Did you? I mean, I want to believe that you were part of some kind of vaunted loft scene in New York. Is that the case?
Well, I did hit a few lofts.
Because here I just want to stop you right there. Because when I interviewed Steve Swallow, he talked about the Flower District in New York. There was
yeah.
Okay, I forget the cat's name, but there was Thelonious Monk Big Band used to practice there. And then obviously there was a little bit late 60s, you had, there were lofts like Liebman and Holland and Chick Corea and all those. Can you just talk about the loft scene that you were involved with?
Well, I wasn't heavy, and I wouldn't call myself a loft denizen, but I did hit
a loft denizen, dude. I love it.
I remember playing with Steve and thanking him for the blues. He thought that would make a great title. And
what was the title? What did you say?
Steve Swallow.
Yeah.
I remember playing with him and thanking him afterwards for the blues, and he thought that would make a great title. Thank you for the blues.
Thank you for the blues. That man is, and he was playing upright.
Yep. Oh, and I remember loft kind of situation in the Bronx, and Chick Corea was there. And he invited me to play, and he played drums.
That's right.
He played good, too.
Dude, the first band he was in was Barry Miles' band. He played drums in that band.
Yeah.
And Barry played piano.
Yeah.
That is, what was the this is so much going through my head right now. So, I mean, like, is there a definitive, I mean, did you go to Rudy Van Gelders to record with Frank Foster? Do you remember that session?
I went to Rudy's a few times, but I'm not sure if one of them was Frank.
I'm looking here, 66. Let's see here. I just want to get this straight. Do you remember how you started to get call? Do you remember what your first soul outing, Frank Foster?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
yeah.
That is a blue. That's definitely Van Gelder Studios.
Oh, okay. See, I forgot.
Well, that was 1966. So I mean, that is, and like as far as like, were you at Jim and Andy's? Do you remember how you actually got, or they got a hold of your? Once they got your name, it was like, well, this guy's not. He's on time. He plays his ass off. This, that, and the other. But like, do you remember like that formative time of like, because it was
Frank, I made the connection with my all Baseites I was with, and one would tell the other, and I would sort of go through the process. A lot of them. I played briefly with Joe Williams.
Wow.
And he said when he first sang with me, he got a tingle in his leg. That's how.
Dude, you're an avatar, dude. I mean, you're getting given a tingle to Joe. That's insane, man.
Yeah, and then he wanted me to join him, but that's when the Paul Winter gig came up. So I thought it'd be worth going to Brazil and doing that. So I had to turn him down.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, who were the elders? I'm talking about the Suds and Duds and the studio jingles and the things like they went. I mean, who were your? I mean, was it Phil Krause? Was it Tony Mottola? Vinnie Bell? Who were your elders in the studio?
Let's see. Some of the people I liked were Bernie Glow, the trumpet player.
Yeah,
he was
huge,
beautiful.
Huge.
And let's see. There were so many good musicians.
In terms of like was Dick Hyman already? He must have been already in the scene.
Yeah. I ran into him a few times, and he was an all-around guy. Sure. Let's see. But I didn't really want to model myself after him. I have a great picture in the house of a tribute to U.B. Blank. I think it was like he was 98 or something, and there are about 8 of us standing around him, and we all played some U.B. Blake for him. And I got something in the mail a couple days before that I got together and played that as my contribution. So that was a special occasion.
I just want to be I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Do you remember this group that you recorded with Frank Foster? It is, I mean, I've interviewed
Virgil Jones.
Virgil, I mean, one of the
trumpet player,
totally unsung dude, man, like the best trumpet player, man.
He was good. And Richard Davis,
my dear friend Richard Davis, my dear friend. Still,
I have a nice story about Richard.
Please tell me that story.
We were working a duo in the cellar on the Upper West Side.
Oh, I love this.
It was appropriately named. You had to go downstairs to get into the club, and Richard to join me this one night, and we were playing along, and Richard was saying, "Wow, everybody got quiet. They're really listening to you playing quiet." So we were having a good time. And at the end of the gig, the owner, who had been pretty much ignoring us, found out it was Richard Davis, and he went nuts. "Richard Davis? You mean that's him?" That's how little attention he was paying.
Dude, I mean, I would have been right, dude, because that's the thing, man. Like, you don't pound the key. Like, you play with dynamics,
Yeah.
But it's so melodic.
I had a different approach to touch.
How would you? Because you talk.
I had.
Yeah, talk about.
I had a technician who worked on my piano in the city. He was one of Steinway's old veterans and a really good guy, Ralph Pacelli, and he used to tune Vladimir Horowitz's piano or action, and he hated it because Horowitz wanted it as loud and brassy and drummy as possible.
Wow.
But he liked totally the opposite. I wanted to sound as much like strings as possible, and maybe that had something to do with being an organist and liking the smoothness. I don't know, but it surprised me how different one pianist was from another. There's a lot of room for variation there, more than most people would think, I believe.
No, you're 100% right. In fact, I wanted to go back to the Bud Powell thing where you talked about him getting this tone and
Yep.
sort of, and it was just by how he hit the keys, but part of it was like, you know, the clubs you were playing, you know, especially when you got to New York early on, I mean, there was very little amplification. You might have been playing out of PA systems. You definitely didn't have monitors.
Right.
And I'm just wondering about how you learn to modulate, not pounding the ivory, so to speak, but still generating sonic volume through your soul.
Yeah.
That's the that's the magic of music, because I mean, I'm sure you're one of those, you know, Joe Sample, when I interviewed him, rest in peace, he talked about with the Jazz Crusaders, you know, they'd show up at a club and he'd be like, what kind of dog de jour do I have to play tonight? And he'd have to like bang the thing back into tune. I mean, you know, and like ultimately, like, you know, but it's like Milt Jackson had that really, I mean, Emil Richards told me, he's like, Milt had the saddest looking vibes, but when he played them, it was like you were levitating. That's soul.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? That's a very nuanced thing, and it's kind of spiritual. I just wanted you to talk about it.
You have to adjust to the instrument. If you don't have the capacity to do that, you're going to go up a tough alley.
Right.
So every piano is different, and it's up to you to figure out how to bring out its strengths and how to minimize its weaknesses.
Can you talk about an experience when you had to do that? You know, you had a really bad sounding apparatus, but you were able to get it, you know, you figured it out.
Well, the saddest keyboard experience along that line was playing the organ in Central Park in the summer.
Oh my dude! Where's the video? I need videos of this, dude. Wait, hold on. You just show up in Central Park, be playing a what was it, like a organ trio?
No, it was backing a singer.
Wow.
I think was her name Margie Josephs, something like that.
Sure. Wow, dude, she's nasty.
During the intermission, the organ sort of had a meltdown, and it got so bad I couldn't play the second half. That was the only way to deal with it. It wouldn't have blended at all. So that was a sad thing. But as far as pianos, I remember playing once at a brewery in Kentucky. You ever been in a brewery? They smell to high heaven. Oh, my God.
Well, you know, they got the distillery there, you know?
Yeah, and the piano was really, really sad. And I don't know how I coped. Probably just played a minimum of notes.
Did you, I mean, can you talk a little bit about, like, truly, like, sometimes, I just remember the great Mel Martin saying to me that, you know, when he was with Boz Scaggs and Azteca and, you know, rock groups, you know, it was too loud and he wanted to go back to on a more of an acoustic bag of music. But, you know, because he goes, once you play loud, there's only one place you can go, and that's louder. And I wanted you to talk about how you really learned dynamics. I mean, I'm sure you're going to say it just sort of came naturally, but I mean, how did you learn to play with such dynamics and because you could obviously, increase sonic expansion with the best of them, but it's this subtlety. I mean, even that Mark Murphy tune we just came in with, like I was waiting and all of a sudden, boom, there's the organ, just slides right in. How did you learn dynamics?
I think because I got this head start when I was a kid, like playing the church organ, because it made me an accompanist right away, because you're playing for singers, and you learn to be sensitive, and that gets ingrained in you. And that accompanying became my specialty. Every singer, it seemed, in the city would call me if they needed an accompanist. So I had all kinds of offers. I can list a long set of divas like Bette Midler, Barbra Streisand, Joan Baez, Judy Collins, Sarah Vaughan, Liza Minnelli.
Oh my God!
Carly
Here we go, dude. The vault is opening, dude. Dude, that's incredible, man. I mean, and that's all. I mean, that's all styles of music too. Were you playing like I mean, was it different for like? I mean, were you playing like a Wurlitzer with Baez? Like, how would you?
No, I think it was just acoustic piano with her.
And you'd be playing like the bitter end, or where would you be playing?
We were on tour.
Oh my God! You went on tour with Joan Baez
across the country. Yeah.
You can't just, dude. You're just dropping this now. That's insane, dude. So you were yeah.
When I mentioned Richard Davis, I should tell you that every time Peggy Lee came into town, they would call me, and I always turned them down. One of the reasons was Richard Davis told me that each musician had to kiss her hand before she went on stage, and that sounded just too weird to me.
Well, that is bizarre. But at the same time, Richard was he faced serious discrimination as probably the greatest upright bass player, because when I did my interviews with him, he would be trying out for these huge orchestras, and they'd have a curtain, and they'd put the curtain so you couldn't see the color of their skin, and he'd be head and shoulders above any other bass player, but he would never get any calls back. It's like this. It's like this original sin of our country that continues on in its own.
Oh boy!
And we don't know
how.
We don't. I mean, so you actually, now your name got into because you did you did studio records with Judy Collins and Bette Midler, and so once you got into the studio with them, it was like, oh, let's get Pat on the live tour as well.
No, I don't think there was a connection there. These were like separate issues.
How did you get hit? And who was was it generally a pretty consistent rhythm section, or were they different every time? Like Baez, Midler, Streisand, etc.
They're all different.
Wow. But you were always called on piano or organ.
Yeah. I did play organ with Hall and Oates, but I didn't get to play too much organ compared to piano.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, and this is all through basically through the 70s, or where are we at right now? I mean, these... that
takes us up to the 70s when I joined Herbie Mann.
How did you connect with Herbie? I mean, Herbie was with, Ray Mantilla and Chief Bay at the Village Gate,
right?
And that was when you were there with Frank Foster. So you probably passed,
Actually, I met him at Atlantic Records. I had done some work with Carly Simon.
Sure.
they liked what I had done on one side, and they said, "Would you arrange the B side?" So I did that, and I bumped into him there, and he said, "What are you doing when you're not working with Carly?" And I wasn't really working with her, just on that project. And so he said, "Would you join my band?" So I figured I'd been working with Gary Burton and touring with him, but I figured Herbie might be more fun than Gary, and it was. Maybe not equal on an intellectual plane, but I was able to be like the straw boss for Herbie for 5 years. So I would get guys like Steve Gadd and Tony Levin and Andy Muson and Alan Schwartzberg and Will Lee and Rick Murata and all the great players. They would come at my behest, and we always had great bands that way.
Dude, Rebillot, I love Pat Rebillot so much. I just going to see your Carly Simon. It was like 1971. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Self-titled album. Is that the one that you were at Atlantic? That's when Herbie met you?
Yeah, I think so.
Burton. Wait. So who? Like, yeah, Burton is a genius, but kind of a curmudgeon-y cat. I mean, were you having like high-level philosophical discussions, or like, can you talk a little bit about
on the bandstand?
I don't believe you were talking on the bandstand, but no, I mean, who was in that band? I mean, because that's sort of around the Steve Swallow, Roy Haynes time.
Ron McClure.
Sure.
And who was playing drums then?
Was it Eddie Marshall?
Part of it was Abraham Laboriel.
Oh my God, my dude, he's my
incredible bass player.
Dude, he's like a dear. All these cats are dear friends. Dude, Abe is the man, dude.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy, and I can't think who was the drummer.
I know exactly that period of time that you were. So with Herbie, it was like, because you must have been playing like crossover gigs with rock bands.
Well, not exactly. Although it would come up in the studios, and they would say, "We want to go for an Elton John kind of style," and I could do that, you know. So, but
no, I'm talking. You know what I mean? When you were the straw boss, and you could get all these beautiful cat. I mean, you know, like to me, like I just know, like. In the late 60s, Iron Butterfly, Herbie's acoustic band was opening for Iron Butterfly. I'm saying you must have had some crossover tours that you might have done with different bands.
Let's see.
You play with Sly Stone?
I don't remember playing opposite too many people with Herbie. Mostly it was just Herbie's band before and after intermission. Well, I remember once playing opposite Roberta Flack, and it was a big arena, and they had the most wonderful piano. I was totally enamored of this piano, and she changed pianos at intermission.
Oh, come on.
It really made me very, very disappointed. I don't know why she did that.
Oh my God, that's we have another Name That Voice for Pat Rebillot. I want you to take a listen to this, and we'll come back.
Okay.
Well, I think that I don't think that the drugs. I don't think they make you play better, but they can ease whatever pain you're going through to help you be able to concentrate on something that makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, like a lot of times people go to turn to drugs because there's a loss someplace else, where there's a part of their life that's fallen apart. That either you lose a loved one, or you've split up with and you got little kids involved, and you can't see them, so. Aside from taking drugs to just sort of stay awake so you could take the work, there's something else they do. They numb some pain, and they allow you to to at least focus on something that's making you feel good.
Well, who is that, Pat Rebillot?
I can't imagine.
Well, no,
Sorry.
that's one of your dear friends. That was my first interview with Steve Gadd.
Oh, Steve.
and I just kind of wanted you to talk about how you traversed the landscape of the live music. I mean, the studio scene was unrelenting, and but Steve, as you know, almost lost everything to drugs, and it's really a beautiful thing that he had friends in the business, and he was able to come back to music, and it helped save his life. And
yeah,
I wanted you to talk about that element of the lifestyle and how you dealt with it, because everybody was doing something, whether, I mean, like God, I mean, it's not necessarily hard drugs, but, thank God you're still here today. And I just wonder if, how you dealt with that part of it. Because, I mean, even in the jazz circles, it was kind of, anyway, you can riff on that. Yeah.
Well, at the old half note, like when I would work with Alan Zoot, we would go halfway down to the basement and have a puff or two. It was nothing serious.
Just a joint or something like that?
That kind of thing.
I love it.
But I didn't really crave it. And I remember the side effects were not great, like depression or that kind of thing.
Right.
So I said, the heck with it. I don't need this. I'm not going to do it. So, and I definitely didn't want to get into cocaine, which a lot of cats were in then. So
you really basically just steered clear of it altogether. I mean, it didn't bother. You would still, I don't know. Did you lose a lot of people, friends of yours, to drugs along the way? I just know, like, a lot of cats. Some of the cats, like, you look at I've interviewed McLaughlin, Michael Shreve, people like that. They, they were looking at their friends, and a lot of them were turning into roadkill. So they were trying to find different spirituality in order to access that high level without drugs. And it was a really insane time, and the fact that
it was. Fortunately, the bands I worked with didn't have that big of a problem with that. So I guess I dodged that bullet with some help.
I'm glad. I mean,
yeah.
You talked about having that string element or that feel to the Hammond B3, the Hammond organ. What was how did you deal with when the synthesizers came into music? I mean, it almost sounds like. First of all, when did you get your first Moog?
I didn't. I was invited to join the first Moog quintet, and I turned it down.
Who was in the quintet?
I forget. Kenny Bichelle was one of the guys, and I forget who else was in it.
What, like Jan Hammer maybe or something? That's insane.
Maybe. Yeah. I just really didn't have eyes for that. With Herbie, I had a small synth. I played in a circle with like 5 different keyboards, the organ, the piano, a clavinet, a mellotron, and a synth.
I love this.
So I had fun doing that.
That's my best. So yeah, tell me about how you used to, because it almost, even like the legendary Rebillot funk album, Free Fall, that sounds like that's pre-MIDI, pre-synth. Like it sounds so hip. But I would have anyway, go ahead.
We just lost Cecil, Malcolm Cecil.
Oh my God, dude! Wait, hold on. He just passed. When did he leave us?
A couple months ago.
Genius, dude.
Oh, he was amazing. So I was in the West Coast recording with Herbie, and he became like sort of an executive producer of my album. And Margoloff and Cecil had done Stevie Wonder and people like that. They had kind of a synthesizer cathedral.
Yes.
So I thought, well, let me try to take advantage of this. So I utilized some of it.
And actually in a very tasteful way. I mean, but when I guess what I'm saying is when the synthesizers came in and started to emulate other instrument sounds, like how did you deal with that? Like as a musician, to me,
well,
that was the beginning of the end of not just this. It was the end of human music in the studio.
It was. That's one of the things that helped me retire.
I did.
I really like to play with people, and it became so much overdubbing synth and stuff like that, and it stopped being fun. But I'll tell you one thing that happened when the synths really started to take over. I said, I just want to play my piano. And then all the other keyboard players would be jealous. They'd come on a date and we'd be on a date again together, and they'd say, how come you always play piano and I have to play synth? So that's one indication to me that I made the right decision.
I just wonder about, being that we've sort of been in this extended pause for 2 years now.
Yeah.
I just, Pat, I just wonder about if there's anything that you artistically really want to do, if and when we ever come out of this. I've talked to, Alan and Muzone, and I mean, everybody has their own little bucket list of, I mean, at 43, I have continued to traverse the musical landscape of our culture, go to live shows and take precautions, and because it's very healing. But there's a lot of Swiss cheese. I mean, the economy's Swiss cheese. I just wonder about, even in your mind's eye, like, is there something that you really want to do if we can turn some kind of corner here?
Well, I haven't been playing the piano much. As I said, I like to play with people, and I have a friend, Ray Kildare, who's a really nice bass player, and he comes by occasionally, and we play. And that's about it. I'm 86 now, and I got bad heart trouble, so I count my blessings that I can do that.
I am so I hope I can fill your vessels with a lot of strength, man. I am so humbled that we had a chance to do this, and I'd love to do set 2 with you. Maybe let this breathe for a minute, but then revisit and do another set. Okay.
Yeah, I have enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, we just went for 70 minutes, man. You were great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Pat.
And I got all kinds of notes haven't used yet.
Pat Rebillot, man. What an and listen, do you have an email or something like that? Did you check email?
Yes, through my wife's. It's her email is krebillot@gmail.
krebillot@gmail.
Yeah. And I'll get.
And I'll send. That. I'll put a link. I will send out a link that you guys can can access the interview later tonight. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, man. We'll be in touch, and much love to you, man.
All right. Have a great holiday. Thank you.
Later, Pat.
All right. Bye-bye.
Be cool, man.
Yeah.
Later. Thanks to Andy Muzone. Great to hear from Pat Rebillot. Many, many more chapters to go. That's it for the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you later.
Breathless to speak. Hey, love smiles her greeting. Then the dream that has seen you through the week.